off the Hellion that comes up front, but as you said, those Reapers have the ability to bypass the terrain. They're going to jump straight into the main base. byun loads up a medevac to go across the map, and he's going to try to bring the counter pressure immediately after this. So SCV's already taking damage, none killed just yet, but quite a few are very weak.
Yeah, this is painful though for byun because all of his units are in that medevac, and of course the push on the other side of the map has a lot of potential, but he's losing quite a few SCVs, and the Marines are doing a decent job. TY tried to snipe the medevac. That would have been massive. If byun gets on top of the production, this could get very ugly very quick for TY.
Yeah, I mean, SCVs might even need to be pulled to help pull this back. We have the Cyclone. The tank is out. He's focusing down the siege tank of TY. He needs to keep this safe. Cyclone locks onto the medevac. He's going to cut up the escape path. He barely gets outside of the range. Look, a great pickoff, though. And byun will lose all of his forces inside of TY's base.
Even game, I'd say, Nate. 34 workers for byun, 33 for TY. Of course, when losing the tank and the medevac hurts, but at the same time, he picked off the tank on the other side of the map, and he picked off the Cyclone as well, which is another expensive unit. Explosive, aggressive start. Look at that third CC, by the way.
Yeah.
It's relatively greedy.
TY's been one of the players to put it out there on the third base. He's been less afraid. byun has been so aggressive, he's not concerned about it either.
Well, that's crazy that they're both building it on location. I mean, it's something you see every now and then, but it's still a little bit riskier than just dropping it in your main.
That's the advantage of playing Terra, being able to float over in these scenarios. I do love the early Cyclone play from both players, though. It's so useful for getting rid of those early pokes with the medevacs. Usually it's not a crazy amount of forces, and what I'm most interested to see are what the follow-ups are going to be, because we talk about what we know these players to do. We have a lot of extra gas being taken. I think that starport got flown to the reactor. So with all of these things being taken, I want to see, we have the engineer base on the way for byun, so he's still showing he's going to stick to that tried and true Marine tank style. So a lot of it going to come down to these big tank drops. TY wants to push up by this third, however.
He might be able to get some work done. That tank is quite exposed. Vikings were a little bit late to the party for byun. Losing that tank hurts. This CC is in a little bit of trouble. Once again, it was built on location. Cyclone is misrallied, Nate.
Yep, just kind of walks straight through, eating the shots. And we talk about this base being exposed. With no SCV here, this should be an easy cancel now for TY onto byun's third. A phenomenal stop. Pick up the tank and fly away. He's done all the damage he needs to do.
And I also think this is a nice scout because he's like, hey, you've got 4 Vikings. I've been building Vikings. How do you have 4 Vikings? So obviously he knows now that the reactor was on the starport for a little while. Gives him some information, but needless to say, massive cancel there.
In a scenario like this, it's very important that TY did what he just did, which was putting his own starport on the reactor. You need to maintain air superiority. You are ahead economically against byun, and the biggest play that byun could make would be to go for something aggressive, at least if you're TY. That's what you're worried about, is being hit by some sort of counter, but byun is just going to rebuild that third base, try to resituate himself, and get his upgrades. That's the one thing that we don't see on TY's side of the field, is those engineering bays. Both of them have been pumping for a good little while now for byun. He should have a small edge moving forward.
Yeah, that's one thing that is working in byun's favor. Of course, our reigning GSL champion, but losing that 30 is a big deal. He's going to try to see if he can make something happen on the other side of the map. If you can force it, I mean, he should still have a small Viking lead. At least he had it for a while. But needless to say, TY is catching up, especially because he's been mining off that third base too.
Yeah, it's very close, but this is exactly what I was talking about. He wants to get this position where he can use his tech units to get an edge and leverage some positioning here. And he does actually pick off enough Vikings to maintain that air control. He's going to inch his tanks forward with the medevac so that he can try to pick off TY's.
Yeah, sick micro, I think, by byun. He really picks up most of the Vikings. The biggest problem is he just doesn't have enough units on the ground, so TY will be able to push this back for now. But I still think that was an all-right trade for byun, considering the fact he picked off all these Vikings of TY, and they're pretty expensive.
Yeah, oftentimes when you make those first shots, it can also draw the aggression from the Marines, and if you clip a few of those, suddenly TY's next push is delayed because he just doesn't have enough forces. Even though he has that economy, he needs to let it build up. So byun's going to go. He's landing his third base out now, and he's pushing again with these medevacs, with these siege tanks, and the Vikings through the center.
So aggressive. Armies actually colliding. Well, one of the medevacs taking a lot of damage. It will survive, though. Once again, TY being a little bit reckless with his Vikings. They will die. Not before at least picking off 2 Vikings. So it was something, but still, TY bleeding out a couple of these expensive units.
Yeah, and he drops the tanks, trying to get a position on the third base, but eats one of the shots from TY very quickly. Meanwhile, TY's medevac about to break into the main base, so has to control both of these situations at the same time. Marines are about to come right out of those barracks, though, so So the drop is going to land in the main. The siege tanks have pressured the SCVs off of TY starting. TY's actually moving a large force of his army straight down the middle as the siege tank comes out for byun to push these Marines back.
Yep, nice timing as well with Stim finishing up, of course. At the same time, byun doing some damage on the other side of the map, where, you know, pushing via the south side. However, this is an army you've got to respect. The tank count is still in favor of TY by quite a bit, actually. It's 6 against 3 siege tanks. Nate, this could get very ugly.
Yeah, and that tank was inside of the main base trying to deal with the drop the whole time. There's no siege tank by the third base position for byun, and that means TY is all over it. Once again, the Marines stimmed up with the 1-1 coming. He's just going to pull all of his SCVs and hit him from both sides, dropping the tanks that he had out on the map, though. He swallows TY's army whole.
Wow, that's actually a phenomenal hold by byun. Cleans it up, losing 5 SCVs in the process, but picked off all the tanks, picked up the medevac, and takes a pretty decent army supply advantage for this phase in the game.
And one thing I'm noticing right now, Roddy, those 2-2 upgrades are very far along for byun if he can keep in it. These big fights with the Marines versus the Marines, they scale so fast with upgrades. They have such a huge difference because of how fast the Marines fire. So this is something he needs to maintain, keep moving forward with this game, and he should be able to take favorable engagements.
I mean, that was a beautiful engagement, Nate, because that could have gotten very, very bad for byun very quickly. Being down in siege tank that much, having to attack into your opponent's siege tanks is normally a nightmare scenario. Barely misses a drop, but that was very beautiful the way that byun defended that.
Yeah, TVT all about this drop harassing. A lot of tanks being used very aggressively by byun on this position. He'd love to shut down that fourth base. Vikings grab the drop of TY in the top side of the map while the tanks reposition to the south side of that third, but doesn't have vision of the siege tank, so eats a few more shots. He has Marines here, but I don't know if he can break this position just yet.
I really feel that byun has barely made any mistakes when it comes to micro so far. He was a little bit out of position when he lost that CC, but when it comes to the micro department, he's been flawless, Nate.
So good. He had these Marines there to just eat a couple of these shots while he moved down, denying the gas in the third base. Like, okay, I'll go straight into your main. There's no Vikings here. I can fly around as much as I want. And now he's going to get even more of these SCVs. And if he waits too long, he can even try to get some of these add-ons. So the counter drop from TY, dropping straight on top of the siege tanks inside of his own base to try and push him away. And byun just gets away scot-free. And you know what else? That 2-2 is now done.
Yeah, there is a 4 CC though for TY during all of this. I mean, yes, he's pretty far behind in upgrades, and that's ugly, but the sensor tower is going to make his life a little bit easier. And of course, having this 4 CC quite a bit quicker, that's one thing that TY can hold on to. I mean, we've been casting this in a way that it really feels like byun has been dominating, but that's mostly because he was fighting an uphill battle. After losing that CC, it's supposed to be a rough game. He was down in tanks, but he got a couple of great trades over the last few minutes. However, it's still completely possible that TY takes one big favorable engagement, and suddenly it's his game to lose again.
The tank count is close enough, and 2 medevacs exposed. Well, that's a great way to throw away a lead count. Those 2 tanks very exposed. He's just going to drop right on top of the ramp, right next to the sensor tower. He will clean that up, and he could try to just force a wedge between the natural and the third base, but this is a scenario where if you are byun, you really want to just fight with Marines versus Marines in even numbers, but he's using the siege tanks. If these engineering bases are exposed, talk about a lead. He can't catch up if he kills those.
If one of those E-bases die, that would be disastrous for TY, and he knows it as well, so he's going to try to clean this up, and he will. He just has a little bit more. byun in a lot of trouble, but at the same time, he's killing the 4th base of TY. This man is everywhere at once. Yes, he lost a couple of units, but that's still something he will sign for any given day.
Smashing that 4th down. Very nice as byun is about to finish his. He still has those medevacs to the southwest. He still has the medevacs in the northeast, just finally being pushed away. And those 2 very low health.
God.
Scary.
byun is playing like a madman so far. We said it as well. This guy, he can just kick it into overdrive. He can really reach a final form of playing StarCraft. And so far in game number 1, it's starting to look like
it's been a slugfest so far. Great plays on both sides. byun really, though, showing the way he likes to play. He's all over. He's hitting from every possible direction, and he's maintained that great micro. And as the upgrades even out, we are going to see a little bit of a better period now for TY. Big opportunity to make an attack. +3 attack is still a good ways away for byun.
What do you think about the fact that +3 armor was not on the way?
I mean, it's considering that TY hasn't started his own 3-3, it's not the worst thing in the world, but...
Would you find any reasoning for it?
I mean, he might have just tried to start both upgrades at once and then just didn't have the resources for the armor.
Okay, so you think it's small...
Maybe a small mishap, but he doesn't want to... Maybe he just wants more tanks.
Alrighty. TY actually having a pretty decent Marine force here, no medevacs.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's a brave mission by these guys, but at the same time, wow, that guy, that reminds me of Black Hawk Down.
Yeah.
He saw all the Blackhawks coming in with tanks.
And now the army for byun is just going to sprint across the map. He's like, okay, well, you want to kill my fourth? That's fine. I'm going to get on top of your production. But TY has 4 siege tanks left by this base. Cyclone gets a little bit of clipping against those medevacs. The third is going to be pushed back. Oh, those Marines for byun, quite a few of them just walking straight forward into these tanks. I don't know if he's going to be able to get this expansion.
And there are units everywhere for TY right now. He's working on his planetary fortress. Actually loses a handful of Marines before he's going to be able to take it down. Don't forget about the left force. What is that force doing from TY? It's just kind of chilling
Just
there.
a lot of hurt Marines. But the fourth base and the third have both been routed of TY.
Whoa.
Meanwhile, byun's still trying to hold on to his fourth. He gets a lot of great tank shells. And the thing is, even if he loses that fourth, he still has that base up against TY. We are in that stage of the game where the main bases are mined out. The naturals are pretty much also mined out. So you really need to hold on to every last resource that you can grab.
byun is like, hey, where did it go? Didn't he have a fourth base? I'm pretty sure that was a base here
He
once
has a
upon a time.
command center float. He's got 2. I think he floated his main out.
Yeah, he floated the one there to the left side as well.
He booked a long flight for that command center.
So TY is slowly but steady going to try to regroup his forces, kind of scattered all around the map. byun has to be careful, Nate, that he doesn't get trapped, because I kind of feel that these units are in pretty, you know, dangerous territory.
Having these units get sectioned off would be pretty rough, but I think at this point he knows he's not fighting for too much over there, just that command center that's kind of stuck.
Wow.
But he's just going to have to lick his wounds for a while and try to secure this northeast position. byun has the +3 attack. His +3 armor is very close finishing, so the best thing to do for TY would be to just try to max out, wait for those upgrades to finish, or force his hand with a big tank drop. But byun is not going to give him time to think about what his next move is going to be. He's going to move in with a lot of siege tanks. These Marines straight up front, and pushing this base back would be huge for him.
Yeah, I think it's important that byun starts using all these units on the south side of the map. Yes, they're securing those locations, but that's a lot of supply. You don't want to lose a big fight.
Oh,
He tries to get on top of the production, and that would be massive.
Yet this is so important. There are no siege tanks in production right now for TY. He's supply blocked from all the bases he's lost, which means if he can't build units, if these barracks get destroyed, he has no way to recover after losing army units in a fight.
16 siege tanks right now for byun against the 10 of TY. That's a pretty big deal, especially if these factories are going to be under fire as well. More tank drops happening at once. Nate, he's everywhere.
He's behind the mineral line, and TY is, I mean, it looks like he's panicking. He's not sure where he's going to go with his army. He's trying to spread out, but he's going to be walking into a concave of byun. So many Marines spread out trying to break out, but the tanks on the southwest flank are going to make advancing so difficult. The biggest thing here, Kev, is that byun does not need to push into this base. He's already taken the expansion out. GG!
A war of attrition at that point, as byun was still mining 1,700 minerals a minute. TY barely 300-400. TY knew that he was forced to take that fight. Even if he didn't want to take it, that was pretty much his only choice. What a first game here, Nate, and what a performance by byun.
Well, yeah, what an awesome first map to see, and this first game already showing us the slugfest of a match honestly we were all looking forward to. Out of a good Terran versus Terran, you know, it had it all. We think about that, you know, the changes we've been talking about that are coming up. Still, flying siege tanks all over the place, and great flanks with the Marine forces maneuvering on that fourth base. And kudos to byun for recognizing an opportunity to not only strike down TY's fourth, but also barely hold on to his own with that planetary fortress long enough to defend his third.
You know, Nate, one thing that kind of surprised me about this game is that if I would have to make like an analysis about both players before the series, I would say they're both obviously phenomenal and great in almost every aspect of the game. But if there's one tiny thing that byun would excel, it's micro. And if TY would have one minor advantage over byun, it would be macro. But if anything, I felt that byun was the one that was, you know, macroing and multitasking like a madman, looking for openings, pushing the pace of the game a lot more than TY, that other than that single medevac drop, didn't really do all that much when it comes to a multi-pronged aggression.
Yeah, I mean, Frozen Temple is also a map where it can be so scary to try to do anything other than, you know, micro your heart out. It's a very small map. There are a lot of different areas you can be caught. We saw the rocks being used, which, you know, Terran players have been using for those tank drops in every matchup since Frozen Temple was added. We'll be moving on to, it looks like, King Sejong Station for the next map. And I think there, TY should be a little bit more in his element. He's a little bit more space to breathe. There's the much bigger threat. If you're byun, you have to consider that TY will bust out a mech build, so you can't just blindly assume what's going to be coming.
More macro potential as well, in a way that there are different drop paths to the main where you can really set up those multi-pronged drops at once, and maybe it's going to be a little bit easier to find an opening in the defenses of byun than it was on Frozen Temple. Now I must say, Nate, if there is one series where I expect this man to perhaps get a little bit cheeky early on, it could be this one. It could very well be some proxy barracks.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see some heavy aggression brought out here by byun as we make our way into map number 2. We are loaded in. We are ready to rock and roll, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're having a great BlizzCon so far as we continue this epic best of 5 on that beautiful stage, Roddy. Spawning in the top left position as the blue Terran player, down 0-1 in this best of 5. Give it up for TY! As he faces off against a man with one of the greatest stories of 2016 in StarCraft 2, the GSL champion, the Puppy Terran, byun!
The Puppy Terran, Nate. I like it. I'm happy that you brought that one up.
I think many people remember their first meeting with byun when he brought that dog to the GSTL.
You know, also used to bring always a little dog, Stefano, back in the days. He also had a little puppy dog.
The fan favorites, they love their puppies.
All right, so far everything is looking standard. It's once again, gas, Rex gas opening for byun, while TY once more stays on that single refinery a little bit longer. That's just the way that he likes to open. byun loves his double gas. Now what I wonder, Nate, if he's going to keep 2 SCVs on each refinery or if he's going to go back to just having 1. It seems like it's just going to be 1 on each side. Yep. So it's similar to what we saw in Frozen Temple, but it's very important that TY keeps a close eye on these refineries if he can.
The most important thing about an opening like this for byun, and one of the reasons why I really like opening like this in TVT, is you get the early Reaper and Hellion, and by taking the SCVs off gas, you can move straight into your expansion a little bit faster. But if you're the kind of Terran player and you get cheesed by Reapers a lot or proxy Reapers and such, this can really be an effective opener to deal with it because you have both Reapers and Hellions, but you're not stuck on one base like most of the continuing to mine gas builds.
Obviously a solid SCV scout by TY. He knows exactly what he's up against. He knows that he's going to have to be incredibly careful early on with his Reaper. Don't lose a Reaper. If you miss rally 1 Reaper, if you move command at one time, the game can snowball out of control. TVT is a phenomenal matchup. It's awesome to watch, but it can be very volatile in the early stages. One mistake and it can be all over.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, a lot of Terran players will agree that the early game here will always focus on the Reaper Hellion control. It's one of those things where you'll often see like this kind of dance where they won't try to commit, they won't actually try to kill the other Reaper. You're hoping to force a mistake, maybe make them eat a grenade. But if you lose your own, the counterattack possibilities are usually extremely dangerous, and they can make TVT a little bit volatile because if you try to rush up to any early tech to deal with that, sometimes you could just be killed beforehand. And we see these Marines extremely vulnerable. They don't regenerate. Picks off the Hellion, though, and trades out his own Reaper.
Still pretty solid, I'd say, by byun. Didn't really lose all that much other than the Hellion. He will be able to get some extra HP back. The next wave is going to be scary. Cyclone is on the way once again. The defensive Cyclone, obviously incredibly powerful. And that should keep TY safe without losing too many SCVs.
The defensive Cyclone as a follow-up to this opening is amazing because not only does it have that lock
not a Hellion
against these units, but that's a really good pickoff too. But oftentimes builds like this from byun will be followed up by a fast Banshee or a fast Liberator or even just a fast Marine drop with a reactor. So having that Cyclone gives you that extra buffer to deal with whatever they throw your way as a follow-up.
I think byun is going to go for those strong early mid-game pushes with just like, let's say, 9-10 Marines and then 1 siege tank and a medevac. There is so much micro potential in a push like that. Another Marine will get picked off.
Loses the high ground vision though, so the Cyclone's lock-on is broken, saving the Reaper's life. And we now see that first push coming across the map for byun, very similar to how he played the last game. Of course, this is King Sejong Station, though, so sieging that natural is going to be a very important moment here since the Cyclone and the Viking have a lot of potential to shut this down.
I'm a little bit worried, though, because the Cyclone is out of position. A couple of Marines are out of position as well for TY, and there is a tank almost done, but that tank is not done just yet.
Yeah, Marines
TY could be in a lot of trouble.
Blasted by that siege tank, and now byun encroaching on the natural. He's going to drop his tank, shooting down as TY was still sieging his tank. Moves the Marines. He's barely going to be able to pick it off, exposing the natural expansion. Medevac is killed, though. Cyclone is defeated, and the Vikings are going to land to stop this push. TY, crisis management, well, crisis averted.
Yeah, actually incredibly well defended there by TY. For a second, I thought that was going to be an absolute disaster. It's very hard to defend any sort of aggression when you've got units behind and in front, because you have to micro 2 screens at once, and that can backfire incredibly quickly. But TY handled that very well. It could have been a lot more ugly. Good pull on the SCVs too.
Yeah, very awkward the way that engagement started. That's one of the reasons why having that Cyclone out on the map is so nice, because it also just gives you your first warning that something is making its way across the map here. And byun still wants to bilk a little bit, and you know, bringing his 2 Vikings, if they have an even number, that Cyclone will be the difference maker to win that fight. So I love this, just bullying TY and taking that map control against these non-stim Marines. But let's be careful, those Cyclones don't have too much health.
Both players, of course, once again going up to 3 bases pretty quickly. Luke's greedy, but it's not really all that greedy because of the way the TVT opens up, because of the way you invest in Reapers and Hellions and these small pushes. The real powerful armies, you know, the Stim, Bio, Medevacs, they just arrive a little bit later, so you can get away with bases like this.
And it's one of the interesting changes, you know, things that's really developed over the course of Legacy of the Void with the Reaper Hellion builds especially, is that you want to be safe against everything and have the opportunity to put on pressure. So you don't actually end up getting your stim all that fast. You know, you'd say the Marine tank part is mostly limited to the mid-game now, outside of the extremely early pushes like on King Sejong Station. But these Vikings, they want to put the pressure on, and you don't see the big drops as much as you used to, because everyone plays Vikings to be safe against them, so it just turns into a giant air battle.
Yeah, this time the eBay is a lot faster for TY. That's nice, of course, for him, so he won't have to worry about being down in upgrades. He's actually ahead by 4 SCVs, Nate, despite the fact that he's been defending for the majority of the game. That's something that he can be quite pleased with. Down a little bit in army supply, but I often feel by the time that these units from byun would make their way across the map, that evens up, you know, because of the quicker rally points, because of the quicker reinforcements. So you can see here an income advantage. That was probably the moment where he pulled the SCVs to defend.
Yeah.
But after that, it's been very solid for TY.
Yep, and those moments are extremely important. Of course, TVT is a matchup where both races are going to use their scans a lot. You have to really be careful with managing all of your resources, and that orbital energy is a big one of them. So we do have these Vikings hunting.
Get a hit.
He wants to basically just catch TY's Vikings off guard and just focus them down one by one, whereas TY, if he doesn't micro, may not actually be able to kill him, but they're both kind of moving out at the same time.
He's stacking them up as well. It's like he knows he's going to try to get a full volley off, and if he gets the first volley off...
He's going to find the Medevacs, and the Cyclone actually finds him as well. If he gets this force and he kills these Medevacs, he could even just try to land his Vikings to get the siege tanks, but the Vikings do come back for TY.
Yeah, and actually in a better position, and a Marine helping out as well. One of the Vikings was separated from the pack, so this is not going to go as good for byun as it perhaps could have gone.
That had the potential. That had the potential, Kev, to be a slam dunk play and a beautiful catch for byun. TY, though, responds just fast enough with bringing his Vikings back to avoid a disaster.
And there was one Viking, right, from byun that was a little separated from the pack. It revealed the flank, and it also made him lose the battle because it ate all 6 Viking shots at once from TY.
Oh boy, and this gives TY a great opportunity to put pressure back on byun if he can hold that air superiority. We do have the 2 Tankovacs flying towards the west side of the natural expansion. He's looking, he's like, is there any units to kill? And at this point, he's going to be concerned because, like, where are your units? Well, they're in these 2 Medevacs that you don't see to the northwest.
It's a crazy counter, actually, because he knows that the forces from TY are over here, and he has to worry about it. I love how even this game is, by the way, Nate. Dead even army supply, dead even in upgrades. We're 8-9 minutes into the game with different openings. Anyway, units are out of position now for TY.
The drop lands in the natural. Marines are going to stim as that tank sieges up. There are 3 tanks here for TY. He needs to hold on. 9 SCVs already picked off as these tanks drop to push byun away. But man, the aggression has just been flinging back and forth this game.
Only a madman would think about attacking while he just lost all his Vikings and knows there are 2 tanks flying around his natural. He's like, yeah, I could worry about that, but I could also send my units to the other side of the map and do damage, and he finds an opening.
Beautiful series we're seeing here out of these guys, and you brought it up earlier. This is something that's going to just make this game even better. The upgrades are dead even still for both players. They're not missing a beat with setting up all of the infrastructure that we need. Sensor towers are being added to help deal with those drops, because I have a feeling the rest of the series is going to have a lot more of them.
You know what I love a lot more from this game from TY is that he's spreading out his forces. I really feel like he realized that last game he was defending too much. He was sitting back and just waiting for byun to attack him over and over and over again. This time he's really making it a priority that he has map presence and that he has map vision. And that's why he's sending out these Marines over and over again, fighting for the Zelnaga Watchtower. I do like that a lot.
And then one interesting thing as these units try to push up towards this cliff and get routed is actually just noticing combat shields is finishing for byun. TY has not got his combat shield, so siege tanks, they're going to blow those Marines apart very quickly if he takes a fight.
There was one Marine holding the Zelnaga Watchtower with pride, but eventually he fell, Nate. He was outnumbered.
He did the best he could.
Hey, he did some
These
serious
guys are
damage, man.
Like, I'm pretty hurt here. Could use some combat shields, man, you know.
Not bad for a single Marine. One of the tanks actually taking quite some damage from TY will get picked off. Where are the Vikings? He had actually a minor Viking advantage.
I mean, we're in that medevac phase. Yeah, it's tough. If you want to squeeze out Vikings and you lose any of your drops, things can get out of hand real fast. SCV gets another look at where the units in this army are, and he's just going to go straight across the map. This fourth base is under construction. That will be slammed down, and TY is going to push for the main.
It's a very, very ballsy move. Now, finally, we do get combat shield on the production tab. How much damage will TY be able to do before byun does the same insane amount of damage on the other side of the map?
Well, the third base has nothing here. An exposed armory as byun makes his way back home. He's going to try to just focus down the natural expansion command center. Plenty of SCVs to kill here as well. The Marines on top of the third. 2 tanks are going to siege, though. TY really needs to hold this base, and he will as the natural command center crumbles down.
Yeah, but all of his tanks were left behind, Nate. They were very exposed.
Get in the medevacs and run. Get in and run.
Well, okay, at least the Marines make it out. He does end up losing all of his tanks, but you can still say that was a very good trade. He was down 30, 40 supply when this started, and now he's up 20 supply. So great army movement there by TY. Great counterattack.
Yeah, just intense. TVT revolves so much around the positioning of where those siege tanks are, where your forces are, and things like those sensor towers. And a lot of these fights just come out of you don't want to directly engage if you can avoid it, because catching your opponent out of position will always give you way better trades than just having a straight-up fight.
byun looking for an opening now, but he doesn't have any Vikings, and he's down in tanks as well, so it's kind of hard. He has to be very careful playing with fire, being on the other side of the map, and obviously with a lot quicker reinforcements as well over here for TY. I like that he's trying. Is he going to try to drop tanks over here? Yes, he does.
He's getting a position on that sieging, transforming planetary fortress. And the Marines have a weird time getting up this ramp, but the siege tanks are going to push that back. Having a little bit of Vikings here is really nice. Getting some of those medevacs, keep these tanks here. But how is TY going to try to capitalize on this? Just use the vision. Not a bad play. Gets one of those medevacs on the way out.
Very well done. Those 2 Vikings worth their weight in gold for now. Push byun back. It's no planetary fortress yet. That was cancelled, but at least he keeps that CC alive. At the same time, there is one lone medevac as well on the left bottom side that could potentially, well, there's one Marine that's going to spot it. Good job there by byun.
Yep, very nice to have that Marine. He's like, hey, buddy, how you doing? You come here often?
It's empty, don't worry, man. It's just 8.
Just parking. This army's going to possibly get sandwiched coming down the ramp. Eat some extra shots from byun's tanks, but TYs are ready and waiting next to that 4th expansion. One very small thing to point out is 3-3 begins now for TY. TY, I believe, also has that +1 attack for his tanks, which will give his tanks 1 less volley required to kill byun's. Very important for the big fights.
The medevac on the south side avoided the 1 Marine, and it's going to unload these Marines. It's going to stim forward and should be able to pick up 5, 6, 7 SCVs pretty and quickly here, or at least force all the SCVs to run away. So well done there by TY, finding a small opening and getting more than a handful of SCVs, Nate.
Yep, wow, these tanks trying to come and defend, but a lot of workers do get sheared off of byun's economy as he has been reeling since that first attack, but now the time has come for him to push back against TY, who has landed another drop inside of that base, exposing the engineering base and those supply depots. Is he just going to try to force his way up the ramp? There's so many siege tanks here for TY. byun's going to go for it anyway. Command center lifts up. Marines trying to spread, but eating so much splash damage with a beautiful arc from TY, but there might just be too many Marines to be stopped. He's managed to get a large number of them inside of the main base, picking off the tech lab for the factory. If he knocks down the production, there'll be no way for byun to rebuild.
I love that TY is flying a couple of tanks into his main. TY knows that he needs to keep these add-ons alive. It's so important that he keeps a couple of these reactors running because he needs production, and I think he's done it, Nate. I think he has stabilized and at least kept his main safe, which was the most important thing, because he also has 3-3 upgrades on the way.
That's right, they're over halfway done. byun picks off a few more of the tanks inside of the natural, and he's going to move in with the rest of his Marines, but all byun needs to do is just save a few of these forces, get out of there.
Sick.
You've done a tremendous amount of damage, and we look at it, at the end of the day, Kev, supply's pretty damn close.
The game is so scrappy, it's such a slugfest, and whenever we look at the supplies, it's always even, Nate. It's insane. One empty medevac here is going to make its way to the other side of the map, but there is one big thing that's happening for TY right now, and that is getting very, very close to having those 3-3
upgrades are going to be huge when it comes to these scrappy fights, especially as the number of siege tanks continues to be limited by the economy of both players. So TY needs to be careful though, because he has that exposed fourth base, but he also has his exposed production. Everything that he needs to win this game is right now being threatened as byun moves into the natural once more, eating some tank shots, but the rest of TY's forces are coming in. 3-3 is going to finish during this fight, but is he going to need it? The Marines trying to spread out right now, just a few seconds to go.
TY knows that the clock is ticking. Not only does he not have 3-3 upgrades, he also doesn't have technically a fourth base, so it's 2 orbitals against 3. More scans, more mules for TY. If byun wants to pick up this game, he needs to shut down the production, but will he be able to, Nate?
And TY is actually just going to move across the map. He has a lot of tanks inside of his main. His 3-3 is done. He wants to try and maybe catch the reinforcements of byun, chew down this production line, and make his way across the map. There's a huge opportunity here. He is going to catch some of these forces out in the center, routing these back as he makes his way towards byun's base.
And what is byun gonna do? What is he gonna try to do? It seems like TY left enough units behind to keep his production safe just a little bit longer. A lot of Marines, a couple of tanks as well. One orbital is very exposed, but byun knows the longer this game will go on, the better it is for TY. One orbital does get sniped though, and that's a pretty big pickoff.
And byun's gonna be able to get on top of this expansion in the third base as well, while TY also kills byun's third base. And TY with a nice amount of supply. He just needs to hold on as long as he can. This could end in just full base trade mode, trying to pick off the last few buildings that either player have left.
But the Marine count is in favor of TY, and the upgrades are in favor of him. Good micro there on the tanks. Every Marine counts now, as both players are starting to become incredibly broke. TY has 1 mining base. byun has 0. byun's going to go for it, but I don't think he has enough here.
He's going to push into it, but those upgraded Marines of TY are going to help push this army back. And TY is going to hold his base as byun is left with a few siege tanks inside. And another huge army, it looks like, for TY is going to push across the map. This command center. Bad day to fly over here. It's gonna maybe live to die later.
That's the last TC, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. GG. TY ties the series up 1-1.
Welcome to the WCS Global Playoff quarterfinals, Nate. These were the games that I was hoping for as a StarCraft 2 fan. And how do you not love this action? 2 of the best Terrans, maybe the 2 best Terrans in the world, going up against each other. First game, byun looked like a man on fire, a man on a mission. He's everywhere at once. TY realizes he needs to step it up a notch, and he does. Plays a great game too.
What an insane series we've had so far. Certainly a BlizzCon-worthy match, Roddy, as both of these guys, you said it, the 2 best Terrans. 2 of the most fun players to follow, bringing their own unique ways they like to approach all of these situations. And in those scenarios, you have so many different angles to drop. There's so many different pathways and different areas to cover. It's so easy to be caught off guard. And we are going to go to a short break, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we will continue this best of 5 between byun and TY.
Heroes of the Storm. Prepare for Heroes Brawl, the new game mode that breaks all the rules. Rated T for teen.
gentlemen, we are tied up here at the World Championship Series Global Finals. byun and TY face off in the quarters for a chance to move on and play one of the best Protosses in the world.
And so far, this is the best series of the day, if you ask me. And I've been loving Game 1 and Game 2. Nate, Game 3, we're loading into Apotheosis.
As that stage transforms into a derelict grassy plain, here we go. In the southeast position, the man in blue tying things up, he is TY! He'll be receiving a very special present soon from his opponent in the northwest, building his buildings in the southeast. He is byun! Well, I think we can say, Kevin, you definitely saw this coming. byun is the kind of guy to bust these builds out. It doesn't matter how big, how small the stage, he is not afraid to bring the heat straight to you.
Nope, I think he realized now 2 games in a row, TY going for, you know, gas, Reaper, fast expand, even making a single Marine, then a Reaper. If byun opens up with 2-3 Reapers, pulls both SCVs that were building those barracks out on the map, we know how incredibly good his micro is. There is a good chance this game just straight up ends unless TY identifies this and, you know, plays it safe, plays it cautious, and stays on top of this ramp. And even then, it's going to be hard, but it's doable.
Yeah, there's a long path that you generally have to take because we have the 3rd barracks now on the way for byun here. If you want to try and SCV scout this, you have multiple cliffs that lead into your main base. A lot of room for these Reapers to dance around, and TY not sending out a quick scout to this specific spot to see it leaves him extremely vulnerable.
Builds the CC on the low ground. That's absolutely what byun was hoping for. TY realizes now what's going on.
You walk in and you realize something's not right here.
Nope, hoping he's like, there's something in the corner, right guys, right?
No, there's the cancel. He realizes things are about to get a little intense. That first Reaper comes in. If you're TY, the only thing you would have wanted is byun to make one micro mistake and get that first Reaper, but already SCV's being pulled. He realizes that he has a lot of work to do to survive in this game.
This one Reaper is incredibly important for TY. Obviously, he's working off one barracks. If he loses the Reaper, the game pretty much ends, which is why he's pulling the SCVs, and I do love this reaction so far. Yeah. Good micro by TY, good positioning, even more.
Important thing to keep in mind is that as byun sends these SCVs in, he does not have as many workers mining. TY can afford to lose some SCVs. All he has to do is not die, but byun's Reaper micro still very strong. He's got 1 week in the back. He needs to keep this one alive. We have another Marine and another Hellion coming out.
Wow, byun losing a Reaper, that's kind of uncharacteristic, but at the same time, he does pick it up. Now it's 3 Reapers against a bunch of Marines. It's a very chaotic battle.
And those Marines do not regenerate, but the Hellion is out. He needs to focus fire down the weakened Reaper. He gets one very low with the grenades. So close to pushing him back. Still has the weakened Reaper alive as SCVs continue to die. More are going to be pulled off the line. Another Hellion very close. Another Marine very close, but more Reapers keep piling in.
Yeah, 1 Reaper will fall, but there is just not that much left for TY. He's going to fall behind in the worker department as well. That starport is not going to finish up, Nate. It's 2 Reapers against a lot, 2 Hellions against a lot of Reapers.
And these Reapers can trade extremely well versus the Hellions. It's all about the line damage. There's still a few very weak Reapers. If he could just pick those off and repair the Hellions, we still have a chance here, but it's so difficult to get that position. A Viking on the way to try and help use it to push the Reapers back, but more grenades taking out more and more SCVs.
Yep, and still 3 Reapers at a time being produced for byun. 10 SCVs have already gone down. byun is ahead right now economically, so you can already say that he's satisfied with what he's done, but obviously he still wants a little bit more because he knows how incredibly low TY is on workers.
Yeah, this factory follow-up is extremely important. Generally, if you can make it to this starport, and I think that byun's already considered this possibility, one big thing that you can do is actually send a Liberator across the map. You have no production, no Marines, and they can, you know, get around things like missile turrets very easily, but TY opts for the Viking because he wants to have a little bit more health on the ground, be able to move his Reapers out and his Hellions, but now the rest are going to come back in, and he needs to defend one more time here, but he's not quite in position yet.
Grenade madness. I mean, Viking does land, but there's so many Reapers over here for byun. The Hellions just bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Yeah, that Viking got knocked straight back into the skies as soon as it landed, Roddy, and these Reapers are going to kill the rest of the Hellions, and with it, possibly TY's chances. GG! byun takes the lead in this series 2-1.
Only so many times you can build your CC on the low ground after a single Reaper against byun, Nate. I kind of thought that he could have busted it out on King Sejong already. He didn't do it on King Sejong, but he looked at the builder and he's like, really? You're doing this twice in a row? Don't you know how many times I've proxied in the GSL and I always win when people do this build? So he's like, I'll do it in game number 3. And TY doing the same build. He felt, I mean, it's incredibly hard to hold. Once you go for the build from TY, it becomes incredibly hard to hold against a player like byun.
There is a very good reason why these fast double gas builds, whether you want to keep mining gas, whether you want to pull off gas after the factory, you need to get Reapers and Hellions out very early on, or builds like this are going to be a nightmare for you, especially when you are up against the best Terran when it comes to micro in the world.
A nice reality check there, I think, for TY. And now I'm starting to wonder, Nate, next map, it's going to be Galactic Process. How do you open if you're TY? Are you going to play byun's game? Do you go double gas as well? Or will you just scout faster, scout earlier, and still try to squeeze out another Reaper fast expand?
It can be really scary. There's a pretty good number of spots on this map to use Reapers. You have the area where you can jump in by the natural. There's one by the third base. And on top of that, of course, you just have a lot of open space that you can also manipulate because of where those rocks are. So I don't really know what to expect out of TY, but byun, he just has to keep doing whatever he's doing, because right now he's set the precedent. He's already been, now he can just say, okay, well, I cheesed you once. You're not going to play greedy. Like, you're probably going to play defensively. So if byun wants to do something a little bit risky on the greedy side, he could probably get away with it here.
What do you think that TY is thinking right now? What do you think is going through his mind? Being down 1-2. Once again, this player is incredibly good. Artosa said he's one of the most experienced pro gamers in this tournament. He's been playing since he's 12, but he's still waiting for that big tournament victory, Nate. So what do you do right now? Quarterfinals against perhaps the only player in the tournament that you feel that can actually defeat you. What's going through your mind?
Outplaying byun is so difficult. I don't even know what I would possibly suggest, but he has been one of the players to have great adjustments. He's shown it all throughout the year. He has shut down some of the most difficult players that Terrans have had trouble with. Guys like True, who had very unique styles. If anyone can do it, it is this man. He needs to do it to keep his BlizzCon dreams alive as this series continues to heat up on the main stage. Our blue Terran player in the Northeast fighting for his life and a shot at that BlizzCon trophy. He is TY! And in the bottom left position, one of the fan favorites for StarCraft 2 viewers all year long, the GSL Code S champion leading 2-1, he's byun!
byun incredibly close to his first semi-finals here at the WCS Global Playoffs. Of course, coming in once again as the GSL reigning champion. You always have a lot of pressure on your shoulders because on that moment you're considered to be the hottest player on earth. You just won the hardest tournament. So far, Nate, he's living up to the hype. He's looking very good. And look at TY, he's making adjustments. He's like, all right.
I like it.
Yeah, he's like, I did my build 3 times. Okay, you put me in my place. I won't do it again. I'm sorry, byun.
Yeah, and I love the way that byun has been playing in this series. Outside of, asserting his dominance on a map where those builds are extremely popular, byun's style is still very good. You go for the double gas. As soon as the factory is on the way and you have that Reaper, you pull SCVs off and you go for your expansion. TVT, you have to be very methodical in every step of the way how you want to deal with it. That's why we see this early Reaper Hellion. That's why we see the Cyclone from each player to deal with all the possible things that can be thrown your way. And, unfortunately for TY, he doesn't have any more room for mistakes. He has to take this series 2 games in a row if he wants to move on.
Nate, I gotta ask, we've seen it all pretty much so far. We've seen some great micro, great macro. We saw a very early game, or like heavy early game aggression by byun. There's one thing we haven't seen yet, and that's full-on mech play. Obviously, one of the 2 players is gonna do it. It's TY. Do you think we could potentially see it here?
Honestly, when we're looking at the maps, I think of a map like New Gettysburg as being one where that has been super popular, or even King Sejong Station. Galactic Process, you have a lot of these choke points. You can certainly play around it, but you also have to be careful because a lot of these cliffs that the medevacs can bypass a little bit more easily than you. TY likes to play a little different brand of it, though. He will use medevacs with any sort of mech style that he goes for. Galactic Process isn't a bad map for it, though. I wouldn't mind seeing it here. I mean, we've seen already so much in this series. I wouldn't mind getting a little bit more variety.
It's important for byun that he scouts quickly, though, because, I mean, he saw that there was no CC yet, but that's the only thing he saw, and it's going to be a very fast Cloak Banshee opening over here, most likely for TY. There you go, indeed, fires up Cloak, and this is a build that has had quite some success against byun. In a couple of the TVTs, we've seen a couple of Terrans were able to catch byun off guard. If those eBays are a little bit late, if you drop a mule too many, things can spiral out of control very quickly. TY has to be careful, though, with these Reapers being out of position. His Hellions are going to be very exposed. This could be catastrophic for TY.
I mean, this is where things can snowball so quickly out of control for the Terran. And look at that, he cancels his tech lab. He's like, I need another Hellion immediately. The Reapers are still going to go across the map. So he's decided to just defend with the Hellions, with the Banshee. The question is, how much damage is he going to take before that Banshee comes out to clear away these units? It can't maneuver as fast. The Reaper comes in, one of them immediately picked off. The second one's barely going to get anything. He has to use the Banshee to clear him out, but he lost 6, 7 SCVs so far, and one Reaper still remains in his main.
Very, very rough start here for TY. Not only does he end up losing 7 SCVs, his Reapers on the other side did nothing, and his tech is completely revealed.
He cancels his cloak too. He says, okay, you know what, forget this. I'm going to start up a Cyclone, get defensive, and he brought the SCV down to build the command center. Probably just going to try to take this expansion, but look at everything that byun has going for Mag Field Accelerator. Okay, well, we don't see this upgrade very often. This just doubles the damage output of the Cyclone against Armored.
It's often used for snipes at the turret CC, you know, if they build the turret CC on location, you know, you can lock on it with 3 Cyclones, and flying away the Orbital against 3 Cyclones that have Mag Field, it's a no-go. It will die so quickly.
If you fly a Viking or Medevac or any, especially anything armored, obviously, into the range of that Cyclone, it will die so fast. And on this map, there's a weird utility for the Cyclone because it's also amazing at busting down buildings, but rocks. If he wants to go in and try to catch him off guard, hit him from the side, somewhere where the defenses like bunkers, siege tank, Vikings might not be, he could go through any of these rock pads pretty easily.
There is one big problem for TY, though, and that's that he's still on 1 orbital command. He doesn't have a second one. He has absolutely no detection.
He's decided to pull the trigger, and on this other side of the map.
There's Cloak on the way. Cloak is halfway done for byun. This could be phenomenal.
With 1 orbital, there's no scans. And he just supply drops, so we have very low energy available. Once Cloak is done with a Banshee on the map, I'm not really sure how he's supposed to deal with this.
Things are looking very, very grim right now for TY. He needs to make a miracle happen. He needs to somehow kill an insane amount of SCVs. And like just survive as long as he possibly can against the Cloak Banshee that's going to be out. But he has nothing at home, so he's going to lose so much at home as well, Nate. He has no eBay, he has no turrets.
He can't really deal with this. I mean, the Cyclones can try to bust down the buildings, but here comes the Banshee. The Vikings are going to trade out on the high ground as those Marines try to push these forces back. Banshee's still doing a really good job. TY is getting a lot done, but now there's the Banshee inside of his base. Cloak, GG! byun will advance 3-1 over TY.
The reigning GSL champion keeps his dreams alive as he moves on to the semi-finals. Nate, I love this series. Last game was a short one, but I still love it. byun, we said it, this guy, he can reach, you know, a final form, so to speak. He can really kick it up to the next level, and he did. He was awesome this series.
And can't understate the value of that X factor byun brings to the table. His control, his macro, perfect. But his ability to get inside of TY's head with that Game 3 Proxy Reaper. We saw a very sloppy start to that last map for TY. byun was inside his head the whole time.
What a sick call on that final map to just go up that ramp, by the way, because normally running up ramps is incredibly difficult, but the Reapers not being there allowed byun to just go straight into the main base, and he obviously, you know, he had TY heavily outnumbered, and that was the beginning of the end. Awesome series, Nate.
Amazing series. Hope you guys enjoyed it here at the World Championship Series Global Finals. We'll be right back to hear from byun himself.
Going all the way to the top.
reviews are in, and the critics agree. Overwatch is a perfect 10.
What are you looking at?
It's time to pick a side.
Overwatch. Play it now on PC and console.
The 2016 World Championship
Terran
Series Global
versus Terran
Finals is
between
brought to you
byun
by
and TY. It looks like byun comes out on top. First of all, byun, there are so many fans that are so happy to see you move forward. As soon as you won, there was clearly a lot of emotion written on your face. Please tell us what is going on in your head. 일단 이 패배 팬들도 엄청 많이 와 있고 그 다음에 이기는 순간에 되게 감정이 많이 있어 보였는데 정확히 뭘 느꼈는지 얘기해 주세요.
일단 오늘 전태양 선수랑 해서 이기면 제가 올해 최고의 테란이 되는 거였거든요. 그래서 되게 걸린 게 많았는데 근데 내일도 경기가 있잖아요. 4강 이기고 나서 별로 안 좋을 줄 알았어요. 내일도 경기가 있기 때문에 좋아하면 안 된다고 생각했는데 그러니까 이기니까 이게 참을 수가 없는 거예요. 벅차오르는 걸 참을 수가 없어가지고 되게 좋아한 것 같아요.
So he says, I knew that if I won here, I would be called the best Terran of 2016. So I felt that there was a lot on the line. And that's why I was so happy when I won against TY. But I knew that there was still the semifinals and the grand finals tomorrow. So I told myself, don't be too happy. Try not to be too happy. But I couldn't hold it in. I was just so ecstatic to win this match. And that's what you guys were able to see. Now, when it came to this series with TY is obviously a player that's been known for great TVT. Did that make you nervous headed into the match? Or were you confident in your own great TVT abilities? 일단 그 전태양 선수도 태태전으로 잘하는 걸로 알고 있는데 그것 때문에 긴장을 조금 하셨나요? 아니면 자신도 이제 태태전 잘하니까 할 수 있다.
저도 태태전 자신 없는 편은 아니거든요. 근데 전태양 선수가 그러니까 3전제 이상, 그러니까 3전제 이상에서 25승 0패 무패더라고요. 그래서 전 진짜 자신감이 있었는데 태태전에 그 전적 듣고 좀 자신감이 없어졌어요.
So he says, to be honest, when it comes to TVT, it's not that I'm not confident, but I found out that TY was on this crazy win streak when it came to Best of X series. He was on like a 27-game win streak. So once I found that out, I was so shocked. And because of that, that did affect my confidence a little bit. But of course, it seemed that it wasn't too much confidence because you are moving forward to the semifinals where you will be playing either Stats or Zest. So when it comes to those two players, how are you feeling about that particular matchup? 일단 이제 다음 4강에서는 이제 김대엽 선수나 아니면 주성호 선수를 만나게 되는데 그 선수에 대해서 얘기해 주세요.
일단 두 선수 다 얼마 전에 제가 이겨본 선수고 그리고 8강에서 최고 수준의 테란을 이겼으니 4강에서도 최고 수준의 프로토스를 이기고 반대쪽은 이미 저그가 확정이잖아요, 결승이. 그래서 결승에서는 최고 수준의 저그 상대로 꼭 우승하고 싶네요.
So he says, right now I feel that I've beaten the best Terran player in the round of 8, so I've proven that. In the round of 4, no matter who I play, I feel that I'll show that I can beat the best Protoss player. And because we do have a guaranteed Zerg in the finals, I'll show you guys in the grand finals that I can also beat the best Zerg player here at the WCS Global Finals. So congratulations again, byun. You are moving on to the semifinals, and we'll find out who awaits him there.
Thank you very much, Smix, and congratulations once again to byun, who goes through to the semi-finals. And now I think starting to build the bracket up, we do have another strong contender for that trophy. He's taken down TY, a player that Artosis said would win the tournament. But he's gone, and byun looked absolutely fabulous in that series, Maynard.
Not to take anything away from TY really, because the score isn't really indicative of how close those games actually were. There were some crazy proxies at one point, but byun, this one's so hard to predict, and he's too good. His win rate speaks for itself.
The score says it was one-sided. It was the better series of the day so far, where we can safely say.
Lots of good moments, lots of clean micro from byun in particular, I think. Can we just take a moment, by the way, and appreciate there's two Zergs, a Terran and a Protoss in the semifinals. Perfect balance.
David Kim again.
Once again.
David Kim again.
David Kim.
Round of applause to David Kim.
Nobody else? Okay, I'll do it for you.
Here's a couple of moments from the series. I mean, talk us through what we saw here. Any one of you, it's okay. I mean,
you know what?
I know Nathanias isn't up here.
Okay, so what I actually really liked about this, though, is that TY did not buckle and just in a lot of these games, he was actually doing very decisive stuff. He was taking really good fights, but it just, for whatever reason, it felt like he was constantly at least on par with byun, because byun was just going mad with these attacks. Really, really good. On top of the production, kind of, I believe it's later in this game. No, actually, never mind. But just, TY didn't like play terribly and make terrible mistakes. This was not a guy